Shalom, shalom, everyone. Shabbat shalom to everyone in the room. My name is Uziel Lewy. I'm one of the teachers at Congregation Beit D.C.B. Beit CHOKMAH BINAH. Thanking the Creator for this day. Thanking the Creator for the understanding of Torah. And thanking the Creator for each and every one of you who are here this night joining us. I'd like to ask everyone to please forgive me for last week. That the time had gone forward and they like savings time, so I just had to make an adjustment to that. You know, we're gonna be starting later, and I really like it when the sun goes down earlier because I could start earlier, and I usually be almost done by now. But anyways, we're supposed to have a guest tonight. But before I do that, I want to give all glory to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Yehovah, and unto him and him alone is all glory due. I give him thanks for my life, the life of all my loved ones, my family, the ones that I love. Thanking the Creator of heaven and earth for all things and everything. And I pray that the Creator continue to bless and protect us and continue to guide our thoughts and our minds and put us in the right path, in the path of righteousness, and continue to bless our thoughts and bless our way. Thanking the Most High Yah for my life. We're waiting for Chief Binyamin. He's supposed to join us tonight. Trying to get in contact with him to see what he's up to. Maozia, can you bring me my other phone with the connection, with the plug, so I could plug it out here? Bring the D.C.B plug, the D.C.B phone. Thank you. Not this one. D.C.B phone is plugged down there. Oh. Thank you. Sorry for that. Yes, so like I was saying, Chief Binyamin is supposed to join us tonight. Let me see if he's on. Let me see how I could get in contact with him. We on. All right. So while we wait for Chief Binyamin, how was everyone's week? I hope that everyone's week was good. I hope that everyone had a great time. That everybody looking forward to the holy season that's upon us. Pesach and the season of CHOKMAH is a very special time for me because this is the time when I came to knowledge of myself. I came to knowledge of myself when I was 13 years old. I lived around the corner for where the brothers used to basically hang out, because in those times there was no place of worship when I came around that they used to go to. It's basically in Prince Paul's apartment where he lived at. And we came around. My brother brought me around there. My brother by the name of Levan, he brought me around there. And from the first time that I heard, when I came to the first Shabbat service, from the first time that I heard the word, it stuck with something, resonated with me. So I came to a couple of Shabbatot, and then it was like Passover. Now at that time I really had no real knowledge of what Passover was or what it was about. I did my best to try to keep it. All I knew, it was no cakes, things like that. I didn't know the depths of it. But nonetheless, I try to observe it to the best of my ability. And we used to they used to buy like lamb, cut it up in pieces, because we never really looked at the lamb as being the Passover lamb, but to memorialize the time. A lamb or goat was bought, preferably a lamb, and we had this fence. You ever see one of those fences that they put up, those metal fences that they put up like around houses, these little wire fences? Most like schools and stuff like that got them. Well, used to put that on top some bricks, and that was the firing pit with some coal underneath it, and we used to roast the lamb like that. And we used to have a good time. It was during this time, during this season, so it was still kind of like a jacket weather, but being around that fire kept you warm. And brothers told stories, spoke about the book. By the time I used to go into the house smelling like a fire, I had to take a shower to get that smell up off me. But those were good times and good days. So that's that's what Pesach means to me. It's a new beginning, right? Because it's Abib. Abib means to spring forth, to bud, right? It's a new beginning, but it was a new start for me in my life at a young, tender age. So I thank the Creator for that. And I thank the Creator for all the teachers that he put in my path to teach me and to help me to understand the way that I should go. It was a blessing. It's a blessing to get the understanding, and it brought me to where I'm at right now. And I thank the Creator for that. I thank the Creator for that understanding. And I thank the Creator for motivating me and helping me and all those great things. It's a blessing. So while I'm waiting for Chief Binyamin, hopefully he'll respond and come on with me. Let me see. Usually he turns off his phone. Hopefully he didn't fall asleep. I hope that he didn't fall asleep. Just give me a second here. See if he left his phone on. Hopefully he didn't fall asleep, and he'll see my messages. He was going to talk about Pesach. He's going to talk about Pesach and everything that has to do with Pesach. So yes, like I said, it was very special. This is a very special time for me because it's the literal time of my beginning into knowledge of myself. This season, this understanding. And as years went on, got better and better. We improved. I improved. I became better at doing this. At learning, studying, and eventually became a teacher. And that's just my, that's just my life. Very attentive. I was always the type to, when elders or adults would speak, I would listen. Although there might have been some people that some people, some teachers, because some teachers was rough. But I always looked at it as being a part of my growth process. And I always got along, with people. So it was easy for me to stand there and listen. A lot of things that the teachers would say that might rub people the wrong way, it didn't bother me. Because I always thought, like, if I wasn't the one that was doing it, then it wasn't pertaining to me. But the knowledge was I always looked for the knowledge in everything. And as I got older, I learned to understand the things that were good for me and the things that maybe were not that good for me. So that's with everything in life. You learn to pick the bones. Like one of my teachers used to say, you pick the bones out and then you eat, the meat, the flesh, whatever is there, and you enjoy that. But you pick the bones and you pick the blood out of the meat, out of the flesh, and you eat whatever doesn't have that. So that's how it was with knowledge with me. When I listen to my teachers and the things that they had to say. So I got a bad feeling that Chief Binyamin might have fallen asleep or something happened because he's not responding, and that's the only thing I could think of. So I know this is a late night for some people. Some people can't, they don't stay up. I figured he would have stayed up, but it seemed like I'm riding this ship solo tonight. I doubt he's going to join me because he's usually a punctual person, and it seems as if he might have fallen asleep on me. So, that doesn't stop the show. That doesn't stop the show. So because we are in the season of Pesach, during this season, we always like to go back and look at the book of Shemot. First I want to go, if you will, come with me to Leviticus chapter 23 to talk about the holy days and the holy season. Now, when we look at Leviticus 23, we have to look at Leviticus 23 through the eyes of a person that has just begun. It's somebody who is just, something is just being given to them for the first time. Remember, we were not used to keeping these holy seasons. We're just coming out of Egypt. Moses is delivering the law to us. He's giving us the law. And we, in turn, are supposed to internalize it and observe them. So you got to think about it. A people coming from the iron furnace, which is Egypt, not used to doing commandments and statutes, meaning in the manner or the fashion that the Most High God had them set. Now, they coming used to doing what the Egyptians do, although they were not on the same status as Egyptians, because the Egyptians looked at the children of Israel as being inferior and being below them. So now you have all types of things going on here. Just like we do today. You had all types of psychological issues, people with problems, people that were used to being slaves and not used to being free, people bickering, fighting one with another. These are all the things that were going on that you have to see in a whole. The spectrum of Israel is wide. It's like how somebody says, like that panoramic spectrum, it goes from one end to another, and you have to understand the mentality. That's why God had to purge some people out of the midst of us, because some people were too far gone. But because Yah is a righteous God, he allows you to sin before he takes you out, because he don't deal unjustly. So he gave us an opportunity coming out of the wilderness because he understood our plight. He gave us a couple of chances, but then enough was enough. Now you want to build a golden calf. Now you want to do this. Now you want to do that. When you already seen my miracles and what I did to Egypt and the people that oppressed you. So those are all things that we take into consideration when we think about this great king and what he's done for us and what he continues to do for us. Yes, we on YouTube also. So these are the things that we need to look at. Right? These are the things that we need to look at. So that's just setting the table to us receiving the law and understanding the type of people and who we were and what kind of condition and what kind of situation we were coming out of. Basically. All right. So Leviticus 23. I just want to go through the law real quick and see what's happening. And Yah spoke unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, The appointed seasons of Yahweh, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations, even these are my appointed seasons. So, Daber el bnei Yisrael, we amarta alehem, mo'adei Yahweh, asher tikreu, otam mikra'e, kodesh, Eleihem, Mo'adeh, Mo'adeh. I lost my path here. All right. Daber el bnei Yisrael, we amarta alehem, Mo'adei Yahweh, asher tikreu otam mikra'e kodesh. Right? Holy day, a holy convocation. Even these are my appointed season. Excuse me, because I'm looking at this book. I'm trying to see where the sentence ends, and I don't see it there. Okay. Oh, I see it now. Asher tikreu otam mikra'e kodesh eleihem mo'adeh. Right? Appointed seasons. 6 days shall work be done, but on the 7th day is the Shabbat of solemn rest. A holy convocation, ye shall do no manner of work. It is a Shabbat unto Yahweh in all your dwellings. So, this is a holy convocation, a Shabbat in all your dwellings. This means everywhere that you go, this Shabbat, no matter where you're at, what situation, if you're able to keep the Shabbat day, then you must keep it. There is no excuse about we're in captivity or whatever. This is not a captivity like our fathers, although we're still in captivity, but this is not the same situation that our forefathers were in. We the only slaves that have rights. So we could keep the Shabbat day. There is no excuse for not keeping the Shabbat day and for wanting to work on the Shabbat day, because this country has freedom of religion and we fall under religion. So you should do everything underneath your power to try to get the Shabbat day off. Don't make excuses about, oh, you know, we in captivity, this is hell, this is this. Listen, try to do what you're supposed to do. Try to do what you're supposed to do. And I got a private number here. And if you're calling me from a private number, I'm not going to answer, so I don't know who's calling me here. Okay, so the Shabbat day is one of the first commands that were given to us. All right, and we must keep that day holy and observe it and understand the meaning of the Shabbat day and the do's and the don'ts of the Shabbat day, and us keeping it and observing it before the Creator of heaven and earth. All right, so let's keep that in mind. It says, these are the appointed seasons of Yahweh, even holy convocations, which ye shall proclaim in the appointed season. And the first month, on the 14th day of the month at dusk, is Yahweh's Passover. So, first thing I want to say, the new moon is not mentioned here as being one of those appointed seasons by the Most High God. So now, when we look at the beginning, the Most High say He gave us the sun, moon, and stars as Binyamin is in the. Somebody said Binyamin is somewhere. Binyamin is in YouTube chat now. I don't see him. Maybe I'm doing something wrong here. He is. Let me check and see, because I don't see him in here. Somebody said Binyamin is in the YouTube chat. I don't see him. So maybe I need to go out and come back in. Let me see. Maybe I'm missing something. Give me a second here. Binyamin is not in the YouTube. He's in the chat, but I've been sending him the link. Chief, I've been sending you the link. So let me send it again. Let me try to send him the link again. Look in your Facebook, Ben. Look in your Facebook Messenger. I sent you the link. If you're in the chat, look in your Facebook Messenger. I sent you the link, my brother. I'm going to resend it again. I don't know. I'm trying to get in contact with Binyamin. They say he's in the chat, but I don't see him in the chat. Let me try again to send him this try to send him this again. Hopefully I could send him this. All right, Chief. If you're in the chat, I'm going to send you this link again. I sent it to your Facebook Messenger. If you see it, join in there. They said Chief Binyamin is in the chat. All right, Hangout. I sent it. I sent it via Hangout. I did it. I sent it right there. You could come in right there, Chief. Come in, hit the link right there. That's the link right there, Chief. And I did send it through Hangout. Everybody, please excuse me. I'm trying to get Chief Binyamin in the... Yeah, you have to use whatever computer you're using. Has to be that whatever computer you're using, it has to be on Chrome, I think, and that account has to be signed in or something like that. It's some crazy stuff I know with that Google Hangout. So all right. I don't know how. I'll go back to the lesson. Hopefully, Chief Binyamin could get that resolved. Huh?
Did you call me?
No, I didn't call you. Hopefully, we could get Chief Binyamin to get that resolved. All right, so the appointed seasons of the Most High. So as we see here, the new moon is not counted as one of the appointed seasons. Naturally, that probably would have been the next. If it was an appointed season, that would have been the next. The new moon is celebrated, observed. We see that in our history. But it's not a day where you have to take off from work, or it's you can't do no manner of work, so forth and so on. The new moon that begins our months, and because we follow a lunar calendar, right? We follow a lunar calendar, and that the moon revolves around the earth, right? It revolves around the earth, and in order for the moon to go around the earth, I believe that's how it goes. Rotates. It rotates on an axis, but it revolves around the earth. And it takes about, I want to be correct, 28 and a half to 29 days, if I'm not mistaken, for it to complete that revolution around the earth. And that's counted as a lunar month, right? But then, because the Most High told us, he gave us the sun, moon, and stars for signs and for seasons, for days, for time, right? Because we were a lunar people, we understood as time went on that the sun, because the Most High also gave us the sun for signs and times and seasons, we understood that if we looked at things in the lunar year, that the day will be much more shorter than if we had a regular solar year, which would take a few days more, I believe about 11 days more. than the lunar year on the lunar calendar. So in our Hebrew calendar, every so often we have a second Adar, right? Which is we have to make the adjustments in order for things not to go out of whack, which is something natural because Pesach and CHOKMAH should always come around springtime, around barley harvest, around these things. And why is that? Because you needed certain things. We were agricultural people, and you needed certain types of crops to be growing, and it had to be a certain time of the season, right? We didn't have a rotating calendar that rotated all around the year because we had times and seasons that were specific to a certain time of the year. That's why Abib is called Abib, the month that we're in, and we celebrated our new year last week. Because Abib is called Abib because it means budding, bringing forth, spreading forth. So that's what Abib is. And some of the calendars that you see the month named Nisan. Nisan is the Babylonian name for it, but in the Tanakh, the month was named Abib. So that's the month that we begin. This is the beginning of months unto us. So, like I said, the new moon is not pointed out. We see what's happening here. We have an order, and this is how we celebrate our orders. Every order always begins from the beginning, and it goes to the end. Our New Year's don't begin in the month of Itanim because that's not what God appointed or told us is the beginning of months unto us. When we left out of Egypt, he told us that this should be the beginning of months unto us. And that's what we observe, and that's what we keep. And it goes and it says, in the first month, on the 14th day of the month at dusk, is Yahweh's Passover. So the season of Pesach begins at dusk. Right? You begin to roast that lamb and do all those things on the 14th day. Pesach is actually on the 14th day at dusk, right? Then immediately after that, we go into CHOKMAH. So this is basically a season and a time where we get all the leavening out of our homes. We get all those things out of our homes, so that we don't violate against the laws of God. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but we have to begin to prepare ourselves for this season and for this time. It's a very special time. Like I told you, I already told you what it means to me and how much, especially just in my beginning as walking in this way of life. It was definitely something that was very important to me and that I appreciate even till this day. You get to clean out the house and do all the things that you need to do to get that fresh start, to get that fresh beginning. Some people abandon this or abandon these. These are more so than traditions. These are appointed seasons by the Most High, but it also also is part of our culture and becomes our tradition that God gave to us. And we follow in that tradition. And people fall off by the wayside, don't want to do it. They don't want to do. But what this brings spiritually to us is a mental and spiritual cleansing along with a physical cleansing that helps us to brave the new year that's coming upon us. It's very important. This is about spirituality and also a connection with the Creator on a higher level. Because when you do the laws, the statutes, and commandments, when you observe these things that God tells us to do, it automatically makes you feel elevated. It makes you feel like you are complying, or not. It makes you feel, it shows that you are complying with the law, statutes, and commandments of the Creator. And this is a blessing. And that feeling that you get, it's a blessed feeling. That's what you feel when you doing and you elevating and you do the things that you're supposed to do. You understand what I'm saying? So, like I was saying, and like I said, we don't need all this stuff up here. I mean, the book clearly states what's the Shabbat day, and it clearly states what constitutes a day. The book shows you what constitutes a day, straight up. So I don't want to hear that, and I'm not going to entertain that conversation to give it any kind of legs. All right. I'm not going to do that. All right. Someone spoke about liquor. All right, so Chief Binyamin is answering on the service. I don't know if Chief Binyamin wants to call in, and if he calls in, I could plug him through with him calling in, and he could kind of give his lesson that way. I don't know if you had a PowerPoint. I don't know what you had, Ben, but whatever it is, I've been trying to. Do you want me to send it to you through email via email? Maybe that'll work. I'll send it via email. Hopefully you got your email up and running, and I can send it to you via email. Maybe that'll work out for you. Let's see. And I don't have my email set up here. Okay. I'm going to send it via email through my phone. Give me a second here. I know I really want to hear Binyamin tonight. Sometimes I get tired of hearing myself. Yes, I do. My phones are dying left and right. These phones are dying. So let me see here. Let me try it out again. Let me see here. Hold on. Get my brother right here. Maybe I got his emails here. All right, so Ben, I'm sending it to Binyamin at BinahYisrael.org. Maybe you could get on there. All right, Ben, I just sent it to Binyamin at BinahYisrael.org. Hopefully you could get on. So yes, like I was saying, hopefully he could get on now. Hopefully we could get him on. So Binyamin, I just sent it to Binyamin at BinahYisrael.org. All right. So hopefully you could receive the invite there and get on. All right. I've been sending it to the Gmail account, and you're not receiving it. I'm sending it to the Gmail. And I'm not getting anything from you. You're not receiving it at Gmail. I've been sending it to your Gmail. Post up your Gmail again. There you go. So you got it at the Binyamin at Bnei Yisrael. That won't let you in?
Hey, Shalom, you can hear me?
I hear you loud and clear. Everybody hears you too.
Yeah, I never got the email.
So how you got in?
Yeah, I got it through the last one you just sent.
Oh, all right, cool. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, this man really needs no introduction. What can I say about this brother? A Hebrew scholar, professional DJ, first and foremost, servant of the Most High, went through the Israelite Academy, completed his course, and now he's a rabbi, not ordinated yet, right? Not ordained. Are you an ordained rabbi, or you didn't get your ordination yet?
Yeah, not yet.
But he got the title of rabbi. What else can I say? A great friend, a teacher, philanthropist. He donates to charities and does the work of the Most High secretly without people knowing the things that he's doing. A great friend, and like I said, first and foremost and most importantly, a servant of the Most High God. I am happy that he's here with us tonight. Everybody, please give your thumbs up and your loves and all that stuff to my brother, which, you know, this is a lot for him to come on a Shabbat night with me. My brother, Chief Binyamin. Hold on, let me put respect on his name. Rabbi Chief Binyamin, Ben Binyamin. Hallelujah.
Yeah, hallelujah. First of all, giving praise and honor to Yahweh our God, the King of the universe, and thanking him for allowing us to, observe this holy Shabbat day, and asking that he would bless everyone that is on, that he would bless everyone that is taking their time out to study the word of the Most High. I know that, this is an audience that's on week by week, so it's good that everybody's in tune with observing the Shabbat day, and we ask that the blessing of the Most High will continue to be with the nation of Yisrael and with all nations that call upon his name and all nations that serve him, because that's the intention, or should be the intention, for all humanity to serve Yahweh, who is the God of the universe. And then just once again praying for his protection upon everybody that's watching, everybody that's listening, everybody that's in the chat on this day. So we are getting ready to embark upon Pesach, which is Passover, and CHOKMAH, which is the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And, from the perspective, I know there were questions already about what we use and what we don't use. Every congregation overall is going to do something different. Basically tonight wasn't going to be about, wasn't going to primarily be about that. But, if those questions come up, we'll answer them. But those would be based on, once again, how our congregation teaches it. Bearing in mind, we bear in mind that everybody in various congregations has different rules in terms of how they keep it. We'll be observing it. Our congregation and various congregations will be keeping it next Shabbat. Keeping next Shabbat as the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So Pesach would actually be, the 6th day of the week coming up. But as Chief Uziel just mentioned, that Passover, Pesach is really just a time frame. It is on dusk of the 14th day of the first month. So once again, the 14th day of the first month would be, this the 6th day of this coming week. And the time of Passover is basically the time where the lamb or the goat would be slaughtered, and where the sacrifice would take place. Because that sacrifice, when we go back to when we were reading in the land of Egypt, that took place before we went into our homes at night, because the flesh had to be eaten that night. So the slaughter took place before the evening came in. It was roasted before the evening came in, so everybody could go into their homes and basically eat that night. And we know that that's the time where the Most High Yahweh passed over the land of Egypt and slew all of the firstborn of the Egyptians. And those of us that took the blood of the goat or the lamb and put it on our doorposts and on the lintel of the homes that we were eating it in, the Most High passed over and spared our lives as well. So that's basically what we commemorate, this season. And we, once again, thank the Most High, because this is a season that, especially for the nation of Yisrael, should be a time of joy, a time of togetherness. This is the time, some people say this is signifying the birth of our nation. There's many terms that go along with this season, but this is basically a joyous season that everybody that acknowledges that Jehovah is God, and everybody that acknowledges themselves as a child of Israel, should take joy in, and make sure that, year by year, this season is celebrated with joy, because this was a time. And also we have to bear in mind that there's a lot of, death in Egypt, because we know that the Most High once again passed over Egypt, but slew the firstborn. So we know that the Most High doesn't desire, killing people, but he did it on our behalf. So we also have to bear in mind that the Most High did, put great tragedies on Egypt on our behalf, and therefore that should cause us to be more obedient to his word because of that, because of, what he did for us and what he did to Egypt as well. So, that's basically like a double reason why we should be all in when it comes to the season. So we're just gonna briefly go through the book of Exodus, the book of Shemot. We're not gonna go line by line, but we're just gonna go through the first few chapters, because then most places will be teaching Exodus 12, primarily during Pesach and during the night that they're observing, CHOKMAH so as well. So we're just gonna briefly, just to get us all up to speed on what's going on. So from the beginning of the book of Exodus, or the book of Shemot, in chapter 1, it basically starts off saying, these are the names of the children of Yisrael who came into Mitzrayim with Yaakov. Every man came with his household. And then it proceeds to name off the children of Yisrael, or those who would be the progenitors of the 12 tribes. And that's from where it says, now these are the names. Shemot means names. So that's where the name of the book came from. And then it mentions, once again, the 12 sons that Jacob had. It mentioned that Joseph himself was already in Egypt. And then it mentions after that Joseph had died, and all his brethren, which are the rest of the Jacob's sons, and all of that generation and the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly and multiplied and grew exceedingly mighty, and the land was filled with them. So basically it goes on to say that we multiplied, greatly in the land of Egypt, throughout our generations. And then verse 8 in chapter 1 says, now there arose a king over Mitzrayim who knew not Joseph, and he said to his people, behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply and it come to pass that when any war should chance, they also join our enemies to fight against us, and so go up out of the land. So this is not the king. I mean, this is not the Pharaoh of the Exodus, but this will be the Pharaoh prior to the Pharaoh of the Exodus, who, upon seeing us, multiplying in the land, that he decided that it would be best that Egypt would put harsh bondage upon Israel. And this also began the process of genocide, because as we continue to read, there was harsh labor that was put upon the children of Yisrael. And then it came to a point where the Pharaoh was just telling the midwives of the Hebrews, or of the Israelites, to slay all of the males that were born. And then when the midwives weren't listening, that he just told the Pharaoh, that is, told all of Egypt, told the Egyptians that they can go through Goshen, which is the territory of Egypt that we dwelt in, and told the Egyptians to basically do the same thing and just slay all the males, the newborn males of the children of Israel, and throw them into the river, which would be the Nile River. But the Most High, heard us, and because we are in covenant with him, he didn't allow us to be completely annihilated as a nation. So then we go over to chapter 2, which begins by saying, "And there went a man out of the house of Lewi, and took to wife a daughter of Lewi. And the woman conceived and bore a son, and when she saw that he was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months. And when she could no longer hide him, she took for him a box made of papyrus, and daubed it with slime and with pitch, and put the child in it. And she laid it in the rushes by the river's brink. And his sister stood afar off to know what would be done to him. And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river, and her maidens walked along by the riverside. And when she saw the box among the rushes, she sent her maid to fetch it." And we, most of us know how this part of the history plays out, where Pharaoh's daughter saw the once again the ark, that we know that this is Moses that's in it, and she saw him. She sent one of her servants out to get it. They opened up the basket, or opened up the ark, and they saw that it was a Hebrew child within it. But the child's sister was watching from afar off, and when Pharaoh's daughter opened it up and saw the child, and that's when she got closer, and she asked Pharaoh's daughter if she wanted her to go get someone of the Hebrews to nurse the child for her. And the sister, of course, went and got the child's mother, which was Moses' mother. But Pharaoh's daughter caught the child Moses, and he got that name Moshe. That's how you pronounce it in Hebrew, but it is also of Egyptian origin, because she drew him out of the water. And Moses grew up, first being taught that he was a Hebrew. So it was, we tend to see certain, or read certain stories, or see certain movies to where it seems that Moses' identity was hidden. But Moses was known as a Hebrew amongst his own people, and known as a Hebrew among the Egyptians. So then as he grew older, we jumping down to verse 12, verse 11 in chapter 2. "And it came to pass in those days, when Moses was grown, that he went out to his brothers and looked upon their burdens, and he noticed the Egyptian smiting the Hebrew, one of his brothers. And he looked this way and that. And when he saw that there was no man, he slew the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. And when he went out the second day, behold, 2 men of the Hebrews strove together. And he said to him that was in the wrong, Why dost thou smite thy fellow? And he said, Who made thee a prince and a judge over us? Dost thou intend to kill me as thou didst kill the Egyptian? And Moses feared and said, Surely this thing is known. And that's when, once again, so Moses knew who he was. So when he went to look at on the burdens of his brethren, he wanted to see how the children of Israel, were being treated, because he grew up first, once again, under his mother, and then he grew up in Pharaoh's house. But once again, everybody knew who he was, but he didn't actually know how his people were being treated. So when he stepped out that day, and he basically got an awakening of how the Egyptians were treating his people, and he killed one of the Egyptians that was beating on one of the Israelites. But then the next day, as it said, that he saw, his own people arguing one, to another, and he tried to correct the one that was wrong. And that's when he found out that it was known that he had slew the Egyptian the day before. And he ran off because, he heard that Pharaoh was after him, and he ended up in the desert. And then eventually he ended up in the land of Midian. So now we're going down to verse 16. Now the priest of Midian has 7 daughters, and they came and drew water and filled the troughs to water their father's flock. And the shepherds came and drove them away. But Moshe stood up and helped them and watered their flock. And when they came to Reuel, their father, he said, "How is it that you are come so soon today?" And they said, "An Egyptian man delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds, and also drew water enough for us and watered the flock." And once again, following this part of the history, as Moses left Egypt and went to the land of Midian, he got to the land of Midian to where he saw the priest of Midian's daughters, were trying to get water to feed the flock of their father, and they were being troubled by other shepherds, and Moses basically saved them and helped them to get water. So that's why they was able to go back. But it's also, interesting to note, and this is something that, we point out, and most people point out a lot, in terms of the fact that Reuel's daughters thought that Moses was an Egyptian. So it shows, that there were similarities in not just the dress style or the culture of Israel and Egypt, but also similarities in the skin color as well. Because once again, they mistook Moses to be an Egyptian. And then through the process of time, Moses was invited into their house. Reuel, also later on, he'll be called Jethro, very soon, gave Moses his oldest daughter, Zipporah, or gave him his daughter Zipporah to be his wife. I shouldn't have said oldest daughter because it didn't specify that. But he gave Moses Zipporah, his daughter, to be his wife. And then verse 23, and it came to pass in the course of those many days that the king of Egypt died, and the children of Yisrael sighed by reason of the bondage, and they cried, and their cry rose up to God by reason of the bondage. And God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Yitzchak, and with Yaakov. And God looked upon the children of Yisrael, and God apprehended. And that's what got God's attention back then, and that's also what can get God's attention now. Once we start to cry out to God himself, and once we cry out to him because of our afflictions, then he would take notice of us as he did in Mitzrayim. So these are clues that are given unto us that we can see and that we can, latch onto. And once, God already knew that we were going to be, because he knows the future. So he already knew that we were going to be in bondage. He already knew that we were going to be brought out of the bondage. He told Abraham, our father, that we will be sojourners in a foreign land for those 400 years. And then in the 4th generation, he will bring us out. So God already spoke about us being in Mitzrayim or being in Egypt already for those 4 generations and him bringing us out. But once time actually played itself out and we got to the point where that harsh bondage that they were putting upon us was, demanding on us, and we cried out to God, God took notice upon us and made sure that he started to begin the process to help us, which leads us into chapter 3. Now Moshe kept the flock of Yitro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock far away into the desert and came to the mountain of God, to Horeb. And the angel of Yahweh appeared to him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush, and he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, but the bush was not consumed. And what's interesting about that portion is that it mentioned that the angel of God, or the angel of Yahweh, appeared to Moshe in the flame of fire, because we're used to reading about angels or the messengers of God being in the form of humans. But this is an angel or a messenger that appeared in the form of that burning bush. So basically, because we've had conversations about what are angels. Angels are basically anything that God sends to deliver a message. So God begins to speak out of this burning bush. So the burning bush, once again, is the angel or is the messenger, and the voice that comes out of it is God, just like any angel or any messenger that appeared to anybody. So it doesn't always have to be in the form of a human being. But an angel, once again, is just any representation that God sends to deliver a message. And this is just wanted to point that out. But, this part of the history where Moses turns aside because this is a bush that is on fire, but the bush itself is not being consumed. And basically, this is what it's a sign for Moses to take notice of, but it's also showing that God's fire that he gives doesn't need anything in order to be fueled, because usually fire, in order for fire to keep going, is fueled by what is burning. So the fire that is burning on this bush doesn't need the bush itself to be fueled. It has its own fuel, which is the source that God gives it to be a fire. And that's what causes Moses to take notice of it. And he turned aside to see what it was. And then God calls unto him. And then when he starts to come closer, God told him, take his shoes or his sandals off of his feet, because where he's standing is holy ground. And then this is once Moses does that, then this is when Jehovah God reveals himself and lets him know in verse 7. And Jehovah said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people who are in Mitzrayim, and have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows. And I am come down to deliver them out of the hand of Mitzrayim, and to bring them up out of that land to a good land, and a large, to a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanites and the Hittites and the Amorites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites. And once again, this is where Jehovah God is revealing himself to Moses and letting him know why he's revealing himself to Moses. And the purpose is because he wants to send Moses on a mission to return to Egypt, or return to Mitzrayim, to speak to Pharaoh and tell Pharaoh to let the children of Israel go. And of course, Moses was apprehensive about the task, because he's been dwelling in Midian for so many years. And this question also comes up: how long did Moses actually live in Midian? And that answer is actually never specified anywhere in Torah. Most people say 40, but it's never specified how long he spent in Midian. It doesn't specify how old he was when he left Egypt. It only specifies the age. I will get to that point. The age he was when he returned to Egypt. But from his birth to leaving Mitzrayim and going into Midian, there's no time frame of his life. And then we're just going to go over to verse 13. And Moshe said to God, behold, when I am come to the children of Yisrael, I shall say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you. And they shall say to me, what is his name? What shall I say to them? And God said to Moshe, Eye Asher Eye. And that means I will be whatever I will be. I just wanted to translate Eye Asher Eye. So once again, and God said to Moshe, Eye Asher Eye. And he said, thus shalt thou say to the children of Israel, Eye, or I will be, has sent me to you. And God said moreover to Moshe, thus shalt thou say to the children of Israel, Jehovah God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Yitzchak, and the God of Yaakov has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and this is my memorial to all generations. And this is that package of verses is sometimes controversial, because once again, this starts off when Moses is asking for God's name so he can tell it to the children of Israel, so that they would know who it is that is sending him to them. So now God says first, Eye Asher Eye, but he's letting Moses know to tell the children of Israel that he will be whatever he will be. But he never said that was his name, because we know today there are people that may say that God's name is Eye Asher Eye, or just say Eye as his name, but God never said that was his name. It's not until we get to verse 15 where God says that's what his name is. And once again, and God said moreover to Moshe, thus shalt thou say to the children of Israel, Jehovah, which is, we know that's in the Hebrew language, that's where we hear about the tetragrammaton, which is the 4 consonant name of God, which is the Yod, Hey, Wow, Hey. And in English, when we transpose those Hebrew characters into English, we get the YH or the WH, which we pronounce, various ways. Some of us say Yehovah and some of us say Yahweh. But that is what God's name, because after that, he says, that is my name. And the memorial that he says is for all generations is the fact that he's the God of our fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Yitzchak, and the God of Yaakov. So Yehovah or Yahweh is his name, and his memorial is that we remember that he is the God of our fathers. And, whether we, pronounce the name differently, the fact, once we can hone in on the fact that we know that he is the God of our fathers, we claim ourselves, or we claim that we are the children of Yisrael, and we claim that our fathers are Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, then once we say that we are serving the God of our fathers, then collectively we know who we're talking about, and God knows who we're talking about. And throughout the rest of the chapter, and then going into the next chapter, that's when Moses is still reluctant about going on the journey, but at the same time, God is still pushing him to go on that journey. And he gives him signs to work with, because because Moses is reluctant because he doesn't think that the children of Israel will believe him. And God knows that there will be people that won't believe him. He'll know also that Pharaoh won't believe him. So he gave him basically signs to work with. One of them is that in chapter 4, verse 1, and Moshe answered and said, but behold, they will not believe me, nor hearken to my voice, for they will say, Yehovah has not appeared to me. And Yehovah said to him, what is it in thy hand? And he said, a rod. And he said, cast it on the ground. And he cast it on the ground, and it turned into a snake, and Moshe fled from it. And Yehovah said to Moshe, put out thy hand to take it by its tail. And he put out his hand and caught it, and it became a rod in his hand, that they may believe that Yehovah, God of their fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Yitzchak, and the God of Yaakov, has appeared to thee. So he gave him the sign of the rod that he had thrown it on the ground, become a snake. And then the next sign he gives him in verse 6, and Yehovah said furthermore to him, put now thy hand into thy bosom. And he put his hand into his bosom, and when he took it out, behold, his hand was diseased as white as snow. Or in some books it says it was leprous, as white as snow. And he said, put thy hand into thy bosom again. And he put his hand into his bosom again, and when he took it out of his bosom, behold, it was turned again as his other flesh. So that was the second sign that was given unto him. He would take his hand, put it within his clothing. He took it out. It had the appearance of leprosy on it. It had turned completely white. Then he put the hand back into his bosom, or back into his clothing, took it out, and it returned to his other flesh. And most people could surmise from that his hand wasn't originally white, because it turned white and then it was turned back to his other flesh. So most people can take that information, and we know what to do with that information from there. And then the last of the signs he was given was that he would take water out of the river, which is the river Nile, pour it on the ground, and it would become blood. And those 3 signs were specifically for Moses to show the children of Israel. That's not the signs that he was told to show Pharaoh, because these are the signs because he knows he's going to go to the children of Israel that he's been away with for so long, and he's going to need signs to show that Jehovah God has sent him. And this is what Jehovah is sending him with. And once again, Moses tries to get out of the task, says that, he can't speak very well, but God says that he's the one that makes us speak. He's the one that controls, whether a person's blind, deaf, or dumb. And then once again, they go back and forth. And, eventually God says that he'll just tell Aaron, which is Moses' brother, to speak for Moses. So he called for Aaron out of Egypt, who's going to meet with Moses later on when Moses is returning back into Egypt. So dropping down to verse 18, and Moshe went and returned to Yeter, his father-in-law, and said to him, let me go, I pray thee, and return to my brethren who are in Mizraim, and see whether they are still alive. And Yitro said to Moshe, go in peace. And what's interesting about that is that even though Moses was commissioned with the task of going into Egypt, he still went to his father-in-law and asked for permission to leave. he didn't go to his father-in-law and just tell him straight up that, God appeared to me and I'm leaving. This is the man that took him in when he ran, when he fled out of Egypt. This is the man that gave him one of his daughters to be his wife. And, out of respect, he still went and asked, for permission to leave. And we see things like that as part of Eastern culture as we read all throughout the Holy Scriptures, that there's just a way that we deal with people with a certain level of respect. So now Moses, goes because, Yethro says, go in peace. And then Moses left Midian, and now he's on his way to Egypt. And God is letting, further let Moses know, not to worry, because all the men that sought his life are dead. So when he goes back into Mitzrayim or goes back into Egypt, he should have nothing to fear, because this is basically another generation of people from Pharaoh on down that are coming up that he's going to appear before. But there was a situation that that happened while they were journeying back. That's Moses, his wife, and his sons. And well, before that, going to verse 21, when thou goest to return to Mitzrayim, see that thou do before Pharaoh all those wonders which I have put in thy hand, but I will harden his heart, that he shall not let the people go. And thou shalt say to Pharaoh, thus says Yahweh, Yisrael is my son, my firstborn, and I say to thee, let my son go, that he may serve me. And if thou refuse to let him go, behold, I will slay thy son, thy firstborn. So this is God delivering the message through Moses to Pharaoh, to all Mitzrayim, to all Egypt, that Yisrael is his firstborn, being the firstborn of the nations, because all the nations upon the face of the earth actually belong to God, because God made all humanity. But Jehovah God designated Yisrael to be the firstborn of all of the nations. So God is the God of all nations. It's just that Yisrael is the firstborn, and the one that he designated to be the head of all of the nations that he created upon the face of the earth. And then it goes on to say in verse 24, and it came to pass on the way, in the place where they spent the night, that Jehovah met him and sought to kill him. Then Zipporah took a sharp stone and cut off the foreskin of her son and cast it at his feet and said, surely a bloody bridegroom art thou to me. So he let him go. Then she said, a bloody bridegroom thou art, because of the circumcision. So somewhere along the way, going back into Egypt, while they found a place to lodge, that it says that Jehovah sought to slay Moses, even though Moses is the one that he's sending into Egypt to perform the task of delivering the children of Israel. There was something still lacking in Moses, and that was the fact that he didn't circumcise his son. So regardless of appearing to him with the burning bush, giving him those signs to show to the children of Israel and to show Pharaoh, and with all the words he was given to speak to the children of Israel and speak to Pharaoh, the fact that Moses was deficient in one of the commands of God almost cost him his life. And that's someone that's close to the Most High. So even us today that are not as close to Jehovah God as Moses was, we don't have too much room for error, because Moses didn't have room for error. So we have even less room for error, because once again, we're not as close to Jehovah God as Moses was. And Moses almost lost his life because he didn't circumcise his son. But his wife Zipporah took care of the circumcision, and Moses' life was spared. And then on the way, continuing on the way, Moses met with Aaron. Aaron, spoke with him. He spoke with Aaron. And then they went into Egypt, but they went specifically first into Goshen, where the children of Israel dwelt. And that's where it says that he called the elders, and he showed the elders the signs that were given unto him. And then in chapter 5, and afterwards, Moshe and Aharon went in and told Pharaoh, thus says Jehovah God of Israel, let my people go, that they may hold a feast to me in the wilderness. And Pharaoh said, who is Jehovah, that I should obey his voice to let Israel go? I know not Jehovah, nor will I let Israel go. And they said, the God of the Hebrews has met with us. Let us go, we pray thee, 3 days' journey into the desert, and sacrifice to Jehovah our God, lest he fall upon us with pestilence or with the sword. So now this is their first appearance before Pharaoh. And once again, Aaron or Aharon is going with Moshe, and Aaron is the one that's speaking because Moses had already specified that he's not good with speech. So that's what Aaron went for, and Aaron went and was speaking the words, and this is where they start. This is where their appearance before Pharaoh goes, and it didn't go as Moses had intended it to go at first, because as he said that he didn't know Jehovah, and he's not going to let the children of Israel go. And even Pharaoh went further and said that the fact that the children of Israel are even thinking about going on to have a festival, to take a 3-day journey to have a festival, means that they're idle. So Pharaoh's saying in his mind that, or saying to everybody that the children of Israel have too much time on their hands to even think about going and do something and have some fun. So what he tells them is that they're not going to get the straw to make the bricks, because basically that was the backbreaking task that the children of Israel had in Egypt, was making bricks for all of the building projects of Pharaoh. And we know that during various dynasties of Egypt, there were various pharaohs that came out with great building projects, and not just building the pyramids, but building cities and building storehouses, just building a lot of buildings. That there were a lot of projects that various pharaohs throughout the various dynasties had. So the task while the children of Israel were there was to make the bricks for these building projects. So it's not, the children of Israel didn't specifically build the buildings. We didn't specifically build the pyramids. All of the architecture, all of the plans came from the Egyptians, but our task was mainly to make the bricks. But now, because Pharaoh thinks that we're too idle, he says that we're going to have to get our own straw to make the bricks, because the Egyptians were getting the straw for us so that we can make the bricks. And now we have to go get our own straw, still make the bricks, and still make the same quantity of bricks that we were making before, so that the work doesn't slow down in any wise. And of course, that's not going to work out. You can't expect people to make the same tally of bricks without providing the same straw that you was before, because now they have to split up. Some have to make the bricks, some have to go get the straw, and it didn't work out. So as a result, the officers that were appointed over the children of Israel were punished by the taskmasters because the tally of bricks wasn't upheld. And they wanted to know why they were being beaten, and they were told by Pharaoh, because you're idle. Because then that's why you're talking about having to sacrifice to Jehovah. And he says, go forth and still make the same tally of bricks that you were making before. And while those people that were beaten, that tried to appeal to Pharaoh, were coming out of Pharaoh's palace, Moses and Aaron were going in, and they were upset with Moses. And they said to them in verse 21, and they said to them, Jehovah look upon you and judge, because you have made us abhorrent in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of his servants, to put a sword in their hand to slay us. And that as a result, Moshe returned to Jehovah and said, Jehovah, why hast thou dealt ill with this people? Why is it that thou hast sent me? For since I came to Pharaoh to speak in thy name, he has done evil to this people, neither hast thou delivered thy people at all. And then the beginning of chapter 6, then Jehovah said to Moshe, now shalt thou see what I will do to Pharaoh, for with a strong hand shall he let them go, and with a strong hand shall he drive them out of his land. So Pharaoh initially was given the opportunity to let the children of Israel go once Moses and Aaron appeared, and the fact that he did not do so is also called for Jehovah God to strengthen or harden his heart. God already said he was going to do that in order for him to show, his signs upon Mizraim, so that they would know who he is. Because as we read earlier, Pharaoh said he didn't know who Jehovah is. So now this is the time where Jehovah is going to show Pharaoh to his face exactly who he is. And it continues on. And God spoke to Moshe and said, I am Jehovah, and I appeared to Abraham, to Yitzchak, and to Yaakov by the name of God Almighty. But by my name, Jehovah, I was not known to them. And I also have established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan, the land of their sojournings, in which they sojourned. And I have also heard the groaning of the children of Israel. kept in bondage by Mitzrayim, and I have remembered my covenant. So now Jehovah God is, giving a reassurance to Moses and to the children of Israel that he will perform everything that he said that he will perform. And that's basically the meaning behind saying that our forefathers, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, didn't know his name. They knew, when you read through certain prophecies, and we'll actually go through that later before we finish. But when it says, when God says that, he didn't reveal his name, it just means that the promises that he gives, once we realize the promises that are given unto us, then we'll understand the true meaning of his name. Because we read it throughout the scripture that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob did say God's name. They did pronounce the tetragrammaton, so they knew him as Yahweh, or they knew him as Jehovah. But at that time, God was just making promises to them that they would not be alive to see. And that's what Jehovah God is saying at this time, that he's going to actually, in this generation, reveal what, all of the promises that he had made. And so therefore, once again, God speaks to Moses and Aaron to reassure them, because now everybody is perplexed. Moses thought he was going to go in there, walk in the Pharaoh's palace, say what he had to say, and everything was going to be done. But God had already let him know, and he was letting him know again that it was not going to be that easy. And then verse 9, and Moshe spoke so to the children of Israel, but they hearkened not to Moshe for anguish of spirit and for cruel bondage. Because of all the hardship and everything that was happening to us, now they don't want to, they believed before, but being that it didn't come into effect right away, and all they're seeing is the bondage and all of this, they're feeling the oppression. They didn't want to hear anything that Moses and Aaron had to say. And in their mind, things got worse once Moses and Aaron stepped in the scene. And, this is a lesson for us today that, regardless of, we facing oppression all throughout this earth, but we should not let the oppression cause us not to believe the word of God. That we have to make sure that what we read, that we're commanded to do, we do. And that the promises that God said the promises that God made, we have to actually believe in them, and not let it be that because we don't see it right away, because we haven't seen anything in our generation, that we start to lose hope and start to doubt God. And this is the lesson that God is giving them then, and this is the lesson that we could take today, that we never should give up on God. That if we say that we are the children of Israel, if we proclaim the name of Jehovah, or to proclaim the name of Yahweh as the God of our fathers, that we would never or should never lose hope. That everything that we read, what we read in Deuteronomy 30 about us returning to him and he returned to us once we bethink our ways, that we have to believe that. And once we believe that, then we should know that it's going to actually happen, whether it happens right away or not. The children of Israel were expecting it to happen right away, as Moses expected it to happen right away. And Moses is speaking face to face with God, and it's not happening right away. But we should never lose hope. And then chapter 6 continues on with the genealogy of the children of Israel, going from Reuben, and then it ends with the genealogy with Lewi, going directly to Moses and Aaron. And it just shows that these are human beings. These are human beings with families. They're brothers. They have a sister Miriam. They have the same father and mother, and it shows that this is a family of people. So when it gives the generations of Reuben going to Lewi, it's just showing that we are just regular people. Moses and Aaron are regular people. They have a family. These were not people that, or Moses himself wasn't someone that God just brought out of nowhere. When God speaks to people and sends people to show forth his salvation, it's going to be human beings that God uses for that mission. And jumping down to verse 28, and it came to pass on the day when Jehovah spoke to Moshe in the land of Mitzrayim, that Jehovah spoke to Moshe, saying, I am Jehovah. Speak to Pharaoh, king of Mitzrayim, all that I say to thee. And Moses said before Jehovah, behold, I am of uncircumcised lips, and how shall Pharaoh hearken to me? So Moses at this time is worrying about what Pharaoh's thinking, and also worrying about what the children of Yisrael are thinking, because everything didn't happen right away. So at this time, we're going to stop right there, because most congregations will continue on with the history on their own. Chapter 7 and on deals with the 10 plagues, and then with chapter 12 itself deals with the final plague of Jehovah God passing over the land of Egypt, or slaying the firstborn of all of Egypt. So thanking Jehovah God for the season, and we just wanted to give us prelude to the season. Let everybody know what it's about, where it stems from. Most of us that are actually on, we know what the season is about. Some of us maybe are going to be doing it for the first time, and many of us have been doing it for years. But we thank Jehovah God for allowing us the opportunity to know of this season and to enjoy this season, and praying that he would continue to be with all of us as we continue on. And blessed be his holy name forever. Hallelujah.
Everybody give a thumbs up and some hearts and all that good stuff to Chief Binyamin. Rabbi, so I don't know what you want to get into now. You said there was some prophecy or something that you wanted to touch on.
But just in reference to knowing God's name.
Okay.
I'll read we're going over to Isaiah chapter 52. Starting from verse 4. Once again, this is Isaiah or Yeshayahu, chapter 52, beginning from verse 4. For thus says Jehovah God, my people went down aforetime to Mitzrayim to sojourn there, and Assyria oppressed them without cause. Now therefore, what have I here, says Jehovah, that my people is taken away for naught? They that rule over them yell, says Jehovah, and my name continually every day is blasphemed. Therefore my people shall know my name. Therefore they shall know in that day that I am he that speaks. Behold, here I am. And that's just in reference to Exodus chapter 6, where God says that his name Jehovah was not known to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And this is just a comparison, because when we're reading about in Isaiah 52 is about our return to Israel once again. And we do know we know of God's name. But what God is saying is that for us to actually know his name, or that entire phrase of saying knowing his name, is just a revelation of the promises that he gives unto us. So once again, in that 52 verse 6, it says, therefore my people shall know my name, therefore they shall know in that day that I am he that speaks. Behold, here I am. When he says this, that his people are saying that Yisrael will know his name, he's saying that once the promises are revealed, that's what the revelation of the name is. So that phrase is just a statement saying that we don't know fully what he's capable of yet, but once he shows us what he's capable of, then we will know it. So the knowing the name is not to be taken literally as not knowing, not ever hearing of the name before. So that was just something just to show comparison. Also, the reference is Ezekiel chapter 38. And starting from verse 1, once again, this is Ezekiel chapter 39, starting from verse 1. And of course, we know that this chapter is about the war that will come in the time. It speaks about Gog and Magog. And thou, son of man, prophesy against Gog and say, thus says Jehovah God, behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tuval. And I will turn thee about and entice thee on, and will cause thee to come up from the far sides of the north. I will bring thee against the mountains of Yisrael, and I will smite thy bow out of thy left hand, and will cause thy arrows to fall out of thy right hand. Thou shalt fall upon the mountains of Yisrael, thou and all thy bands, and the people that are with thee. I will give thee to the ravenous birds of every sort, and to the beasts of the field to be devoured. Thou shalt fall upon the open field, for I have spoken, it says Jehovah God. And I will send a fire on Magog, and among them that dwell securely in the coastlines, and they shall know that I am Jehovah. so will I make my holy name known in the midst of my people Yisrael, and I will not allow my holy name to be profaned anymore, and the nation shall know that I am Yehovah, the Holy One in Yisrael. So once again, reading verse 7 again. So will I make my holy name known in the midst of my people Yisrael, and I will not allow my holy name to be profaned anymore, and the nation shall know that I am Yehovah, the Holy One in Yisrael. So once again, the statement or the phrase of when God says someone will know his name means that in a time to come, once his promises are revealed and they're actually put into effect, that's just a allegory is probably the wrong word or wrong term to use, but actually just showing that statement of knowing the name is not a literal expression saying that we didn't know the name at all. So Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, or Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, were not alive to see the promises that God made to them. So once that was revealed to the children of Israel in Egypt through the Exodus, then we knew his name based on the promises he made. So jumping forward to where we read in Isaiah and in Ezekiel, when God is promising the return of Yisrael through a series of events, he's saying, then we will know his name. So that's just showing that, the revelation of certain things is what knowing the name actually means. And it's not just about literally knowing the name. So I just wanted to, clear that up for the people that had those questions.
So that, Rabbi, so I think that was a great job. I don't know if you want to take any questions, or I think you already answered a couple of questions, right?
Yeah, I think whatever was on the chat, on the YouTube chat, I should say.
So are you going to continue with this history tomorrow afternoon, or what?
Yeah, we could continue from 7.
You continue from 7, okay. So I thank the Most High God for my brother for joining us tonight. Sorry for the early technical difficulties for everyone out there. Don't forget to join us tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Time on this same channel, D.C.B channel. May the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob bless each and every one of you. Shalom, shalom, and everyone have a great night's sleep. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.